I used to think that the day my net worth reached $1 million would be one of the most unforgettable days of my life. I imagined that moment over and over again. Maybe I would open a bottle of champagne. Maybe I would call my family. Maybe I would sit alone, stare at the number on the screen, and cry. Or at the very least, I thought I would feel something huge. Pride, happiness, relief, victory. But the reality was completely different. The day my net worth crossed $1 million was just a normal Tuesday. I woke up, saw a bit, same room, same ordinary morning. I picked up my phone, opened my investment account, and there it was. 1 million. I stared at it for a few seconds, refreshed the page, still above $1 million. Then I locked my phone, sat there quietly, and the strangest part was, I barely felt anything. No victory music, no fireworks. Not cinematic moment. That day, I still had bills to pay. I still had work to do. I still thought twice before buying something expensive. I still drank the same kind of coffee I drank the day before. And then, a strange thought appeared in my head. That's it? I had spent years running toward this number. And when I finally reached it, it felt disturbingly quiet. That was when I realized something I had never fully understood before. Becoming a millionaire on paper, and actually feeling like a millionaire, are two completely different things. For years, I treated $1 million like a doorway. I thought that on the other side of that door was a completely different life. A life without pressure, without anxiety, without constantly checking prices, without constantly worrying about the future. I used to tell myself, just get to $1 million, then I'll relax. Then I'll start living. Then I'll finally feel safe. But here's the problem. Human beings are incredibly good at moving the finish line. When I didn't have $100,000, I thought $100,000 was a lot of money. When I reached $100,000, I started thinking, $500,000 is where it really starts to matter. When I got close to $500,000, my mind shifted again. No, it has to be $1 million. And once I hit $1 million, another voice showed up. Yeah, but $2 million would be truly safe. That is the trap. If you are not careful, you can spend your entire life chasing a number. And every time you reach it, you place another number farther away. I used to think having more money would make me less afraid of money. I was wrong. In some ways, I became more afraid. When my investment portfolio was small, a bad day in the market might cost me $1,000. Annoying, but manageable. When the portfolio reached $100,000, a 10% drop meant losing $10,000. That started to hurt. But when your assets reach $1 million, 10% sata nolla. Think about that. You open your phone and watch an amount of money equal to someone's annual income disappear from the screen in a relatively short period of time. At that point, 10% is no longer just a percentage. Your brain converts it into real things. Akar, a house down payment, years of rent, months or even years of work. And that was when I realized, when you do not have money, you are afraid you will never earn enough. When you do have money, you become afraid you will lose what you already built. Fear does not disappear. It just changes shape. After the initial disappointment wore off, I started seeing what was truly important about reaching $1 million. It was not status. It was not the title of millionaire. It was the math. Imagine a $1 million portfolio earning an average long-term return of around 7%. That is roughly $70,000 a year. Of course, the market does not pay you exactly 7% every year like a salary. Some years it may rise 20%. Some years it may fall 15%. Some years it may barely move. But that is not the most important point. The important part is scale. Once your capital becomes large enough, your money can create a meaningful amount of money without requiring you to work more hours. And that changes everything. Before that point, if I wanted my wealth to grow faster, I had to work more, earn more, save more, invest more. I was the engine. But once the portfolio became large enough, capital itself became a second engine. I call this the crossover point. The moment when your assets begin producing an amount of value close to what your own labor produces, that was the real turning point. Not because I could tell people I had $1 million, but because the machine had started running on its own. There is a phrase people say all the time, the first million is the hardest. I used to think it was just motivational talk. Now I understand it mathematically. The beginning is painfully slow. Let's say you have $10,000. A 10% return gives you $1,000. Life does not change. You have $50,000. A 10% return gives you $5,000. Still not massive. You have $100,000. A 10% return gives you $10,000. Now it starts to matter. But when you have $1 million, 10% is sata, nolla. Same percentage. Completely different result. That is the power of scale. And that is why the early stage demands so much patience. At that stage, compounding is not strong enough for you to feel it. You still have to pull most of the weight yourself. You contribute, then contribute again. And again. There may be years when you look at the account and think, why is this growing so slowly? This reminds me of people building a new YouTube channel. They upload 5 videos, 7 videos, 10 videos, no views, no money, nobody cares. Then they panic, change the topic, change the niche, change the format, change everything. But many systems need time to collect data before they start accelerating. One principle I strongly believe in is, do not wait until you are perfect before you start. Start so you can become better. The same thing applies to money. You do not need a perfect system in year 1. You need a system that is good enough, and the discipline to stay with it long enough. There is a funny contradiction here. When I had less money, I assumed rich people must be doing extremely complicated things. Buying this, selling that, constantly moving money around, studying dozens of different assets, always taking action. But the further I went, the more I realized that one of the hardest skills is doing nothing. Yes, standing still. If you already have a reasonable portfolio, low costs, diversification, a risk level you can live with, then sometimes the smartest thing you can do is leave it alone. But the human brain hates that. We want to feel in control. The market drops, we want to sell. The market shoots up, we want to chase. Bad news comes out, we want to get defensive. A new trend appears, we want to jump in. And this constant need to do something causes many people to destroy systems that were already working. I see the same thing in business. When a piece of content is working, you have to know how to protect what is winning and keep improving it. You do not throw away a functioning system every time something new appears. Investing is the same. Not every opportunity deserves your participation. As my assets grew, I understood loss aversion much more deeply. In simple terms, the pain of losing money often feels much stronger than the pleasure of gaining the same amount. For example, your portfolio rises by $50,000. You are happy. But when it drops by $50,000, the emotional reaction is completely different. You lose sleep. You check your phone over and over. You start reading financial news constantly. You search for recession predictions. And you start thinking, maybe I should sell now and buy back lower. That was when I realized I could not trust myself during panic. So, I needed rules. I needed an investment policy statement, an IPS. It sounds sophisticated, but in reality, it is just a written agreement with yourself. I write down what I invest in, how much goes into each asset class, when I rebalance, what conditions allow me to sell, what conditions do not, and especially, I do not make major financial decisions just because the market is violently red for one day. Why? Because I know myself. When I am calm, I can think long-term. When I am scared, I just want the pain to stop. Those are two completely different versions of me. So I let the calm version write the rules for the panicked version. Before my assets became large, I barely paid attention to fees. 500 sounds tiny, but once the portfolio grows, everything changes. 1% of $1 million is $10,000. Every year. Pay that for 10 years. And it is not just $100,000. You also lose the return that $100,000 could have generated. That is what I think of as compounded cost. You do not just lose the money. You lose the earning power of the money you lost. That was when I started paying closer attention to expense ratios, management fees, advisory fees, trading costs, small leaks I used to ignore. And I realized something important. When your assets are still small, income and savings rate usually matter most. But when your assets become large, small inefficiencies start turning into serious money. My old question was simple. What should I invest in? Stocks? Index funds? Bonds? Real estate? But eventually another question became just as important. Where should I hold it? That is asset location. It is not only about what you own. It is also about which type of asset belongs in which type of account. Different assets can produce different types of taxable income. Some may be more efficient inside tax-advantaged accounts. When your portfolio is small, the difference may not seem dramatic. When your portfolio is large, it becomes real money. And then I also started seeing investment opportunities I barely noticed before: private real estate, private equity, alternative assets. But I constantly remind myself of one thing: more complicated does not automatically mean better. A lot of financial products are designed to make investors feel like they are part of an exclusive club. But I do not care about feeling exclusive. I care about returns after fees, after taxes, after risk, after everything. This is one of the most important questions. Can $1 million buy a luxury car? Sure. Can it buy expensive vacations? Absolutely. Can it disappear quickly if you are reckless? Also yes. But the most valuable thing $1 million bought me was not a physical object. It bought me a floor. A financial floor. For example, using a withdrawal rate around 4% per year, $1 million equals roughly $40,000 a year before tax. That is not billionaire living. It is not private jets. It is not buying a Lamborghini every year, but in many places, that amount can cover a large portion of basic living expenses: housing, food, healthcare, utilities, transportation. In other words, it creates distance between you and desperation, and that is what changes life. There is a very specific feeling that comes from knowing, if this job disappears tomorrow, I will not immediately collapse. I am not saying $1 million automatically means someone never needs to work again. That depends entirely on lifestyle and spending. But it changes your posture. You walk into meetings differently. You speak to your boss differently. You evaluate opportunities differently. You are no longer so desperate that you must accept everything. A toxic workplace? You can seriously consider leaving. A terrible client? You can say no. A business idea that needs 6 months to test? You have more breathing room. That was when I realized money does not just buy things. Money buys options. Money buys time. And most importantly, money buys the right to say no. For me, that may be one of the strongest forms of freedom. I used to think financial independence meant never working again. I do not believe that anymore. Human beings still need meaning, still need goals, still need to feel like they are building something. The question is not whether you work. The question is, do you have a choice? If I work because I am terrified I will not be able to pay next month's bills, that is dependency. If I work because I genuinely care about what I am building, that is choice. Two people can work the exact same job, 10 hours a day, but their internal experience can be completely different. One person is trapped, the other person is choosing. Money creates the space between those two states. Sounds ridiculous, right? You spend your whole life learning how to earn, how to save, how to invest. And once you finally have money, you realize you do not know how to spend it. But this is a real problem. If you spend 10 or 15 years training yourself to avoid unnecessary purchases, never inflate your lifestyle, always save, always invest, always think about opportunity cost, then do not assume you can suddenly flip a switch and become comfortable spending. It does not work like that. You look at a $10,000 vacation and think, what would this money become in 20 years if I invested it? You look at a new car and think, what is the opportunity cost? And if you are not careful, you become a prisoner of the exact habits that made you wealthy. This is where I started liking the bucket approach. I divide money by time horizon. Bucket 1, money for short-term needs, roughly 1 to 3 years. I want that money to be safe, liquid, accessible. So if the market crashes, I am not forced to sell growth assets at the worst possible time. Bucket 2, medium-term needs, roughly 4 to 7 years. Here, stability matters more. Bucket 3, long-term money, 8 years or more. This is where I am more willing to accept volatility in exchange for growth. The point of the bucket approach is not to maximize returns at any cost. The point is to help me sleep at night, and the more money I accumulated, the more I realized that sleeping well is also a form of return. A lot of people ask, what is the safe withdrawal rate? 5%? 5%? Wu. I used to think there had to be one perfect answer, but reality is not that simple. A suitable withdrawal rate depends on a retirement horizon, portfolio structure, inflation, taxes, living expenses, other income, and flexibility. For example, if markets perform extremely well for several years, I may increase spending. If markets fall sharply, I may delay a major vacation, reduce non-essential expenses. I am not a robot. I can adjust. And that flexibility may make a financial plan more durable than blindly following one fixed number. This was one of the hardest lessons for me. I slowly began allowing myself to spend more on things that genuinely create value. Health, time, experiences, family, anything that reduces meaningless work, anything that gives me more time with people I care about. I am not talking about wasting money. I am talking about intentional spending. There is a huge difference. Wasteful spending says, I have money, so I should buy this. Intentional spending says, this genuinely improves my life, so I am choosing to use money for it. That is when money starts doing its real job, not sitting on a screen, but serving your life. Reaching $1 million does not end the game. In some ways, it opens a new trap, and that trap is just a little more. $1 million. Maybe $2 million would feel safer. $2 million. Maybe $5 million would feel comfortable. $5 million. Maybe $10 million would mean I am finally rich. And it never ends. So I started asking myself, how much is enough? That is a terrifying question, because if you do not have an answer, then no amount of money will ever be enough. You can die with $20 million in your accounts, but never have had time to eat dinner with your children. You can own 5 houses, but destroy your health. You can accumulate enormous wealth, and never enjoy the years when your body was still strong. Is that really rich? I do not know. Something else changed that I did not expect. The way I saw myself. When you know you can take care of yourself, a different kind of confidence appears. Not the kind that says, I have more money than you. That kind of confidence is cheap. I mean the deeper feeling of, I will be okay. Something bad happens? I can deal with it. Lose a job? I have time to find another path. A family member needs help? I can help. Need to take a few months off to rethink my life? I have that option. That feeling of, I will be okay, carries enormous psychological value. This is the part many financial videos avoid. Money does not automatically make you happy. A bad relationship is still a bad relationship. An unhealthy body is still unhealthy. A person with no sense of purpose can still wake up inside a $2 million house and feel empty. Money is powerful, but it is not magic. It can remove many problems caused by not having enough money, but it cannot automatically create meaning. That is why the day I reached $1 million felt disappointing. Without realizing it, I had expected that number to answer a question money cannot answer. How should I live my life? That is not a financial question. If I could go back and speak to the version of myself who had very little money, I would not say, keep going. One day you will have $1 million. I would say, build systems. Be patient. Do not inflate your lifestyle too early. Do not chase every opportunity. Do not let one market crash destroy your long-term strategy. But I would also add, do not forget to live. Because ambitious people make one mistake over and over again. We say, suffer today, leave later. Work today, travel later. Ignore health today, fix it later. Skip family time today, make up for it later. But some things cannot be bought back later. The day I reached $1 million, I thought I had completed a race, but then I realized I had simply entered a different game. Before that, my question was, how do I make more money? Now the questions became, how do I protect it? How do I use it? How much is enough? And what kind of life do I actually want to build? That last question is the hardest one, because earning money can be learned. Investing can be learned, but figuring out what you want your life to look like, no one can answer that for you. If you ask me, is pursuing $1 million worth it? My answer is still yes. Absolutely. Not because of the title, millionaire, not for status, not to buy an expensive car and prove to other people that you made it, but because of the choices, the breathing room, the safety, the right to say no, the ability to try something new. The ability to fail without being destroyed. The ability to make decisions without every single bill feeling like a knife at your throat. But I also want to tell you this. Do not turn $1 million into a god. Do not be stupid enough to trade your health, your family, and the best 20 years of your life just to stare at a number on a screen. Money is a tool. It is not your master. It took me years to build $1 million. But the harder part was learning what I actually wanted to do with it. The day I crossed $1 million was just a normal Tuesday. No champagne, no fireworks, no applause, just me, a phone, and one question: how do I want to live now? Maybe. That was the moment the real game actually began.